The Grim Reaper is in Bristol. He's in New York. He's in LA. And y'all spell it with 4 letters, ESPN. Man, this is a sad one right here. Layoffs were very disappointing for the former second longest tenured employee, Mike Soltys. But he still is talking that company talk, still thinks the future is bright for ESPN. Let's talk about who he is, in case you don't know who he is. So he started with ESPN as an intern and worked his way up to vice president of corporate communications for the worldwide leader. He was with the company for 43 years. Longer than most of y'all been living, right? Most of y'all ain't been alive that long. This sucker was there from 1980 all the way to 23. Man, crazy. So earlier this year, the ESPN veteran was included in the first round of extensive layoffs that we know are still ongoing. Matter of fact, I had a phone call with one of the homies who works over there who was saying he might have to duck as well. And it's a couple cats that have been texting me talking about not sure what's going to happen. So as the anticipation comes for more of the layoffs, supposed to happen at the end of June, we are there, and going into July. So look for some more prominent names as well to get axed. So his role and his standing with the company allowed him to actually get interviewed about him getting laid off by the same company that he actually goes out there and does the PR for. So this is a wild one right here. So Soltys was asked about the network's future, and he actually said some good things. He said, despite us being in the social media age, that ESPN is still doing well in social, on Snapchat, TikTok, other platforms. And look, you can say, all right, man, you got fired, dog. You ain't got to go out there and talk so good about him anymore. But he has no reason to lie at the same breath. So this is a situation that made you say, maybe he is onto something in terms of ESPN. Even though they are laying people off, still having a promising future, and obviously still investing in their future with people like Pat McAfee. So for his time at the end of ESPN, he did say some profound things, some interesting things. He talked about how he loved working there. He talked about his colleagues and had respect for them. But he also said it was sad because he looked at the situation where he got fired and others were getting fired, and it wasn't for just what they were doing at the job. He says, look, this wasn't performance-based when you talk about some of these layoffs. Here's a quote from him. It still goes back to that basic premise that we're providing sports all the time, and people are still looking for sports all the time. When there's a streaming universe and everything else, we've shown that we can do multiple cable channels. We can do broadcast. We can do streaming. We can do social. We can do all that. So I think that the future is still bright. Okay. Now, he said all of that, but at the same time, he was like, man, how do you get laid off for not a production reason? And that's interesting. That's making me think about, like, how are they really going through this in terms of criteria of who to lay off? First, we were just thinking they would kind of go mid-pack. You don't want to chop off your head the top dogs, and obviously the bottom ones don't have enough economic impact, so why would you even attack them? But it seems like no matter what your status, what your tenure is, you can still get the axe. 43 years. Y'all think this was disrespectful, or you just like, hey, I don't care how long you've been there? Because remember, there was a time, I don't know how long it was, y'all correct me, but it seemed like Chris Berman was gone. And then Chris Berman kind of came back in a different light, and he does a show. It seems like it's a streaming show. I'm not so certain. He still jumps in there for the fastest 2 minutes or something like that. But even Chris Berman, day one, was out of ESPN, it felt like. So do you agree with him? You agree with Mr. Soltys thinking that the future is still bright for ESPN? What I'm tripping off of is the fact that he even had to pause and say that it seems like they're showing this amount of people the door, not for performance reasons. And that is very disappointing. How disappointing is it? Because imagine you do your job. You ain't the top dog there, but you're doing your damn fizzle. You've been there for 43 years and they tap you on the shoulder and they say it's time to go. But before you go, we want you to talk about us. No pressure. Be nice if you said something nice about us. But what would y'all do in that situation? I know me, I'm going ham 100. I ain't even gonna say nothing because I've been in that position before. You know what? My last words were my last words.